That's right. You're listening to another episode of the Co-Main Event Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I'm Chad Dundas. That's Ben Folks. We're both longtime MMA journalists, and for nearly the last 14 years, we've been meeting here every week to break down all the action in the wild, weird, and occasionally wonderful world of mixed martial arts. Ben, not a particularly earth-shattering weekend of news from the UFC after heading up there to Winnipeg and letting Mike Malott retire Gilbert Burns. However, still kind of a lot to talk about this Tuesday, especially in the wake of WrestleMania 42, which seemed to leave a lot of wrestling fans feeling a certain kind of way, perhaps a way that MMA fans have been feeling about the on-air product for a while now. So some interesting stuff to discuss there, not to mention Brock Lesnar leaving his gloves in the ring after doing the JOB to Obafemi at Mania. If that does indeed turn out to be Lesnar's last ride, we might look to put his athletic journey into some kind of perspective this week for what that's worth. Ben, before we get into that, though, May is the CME's 14th birthday next month.
You know it is.
Hard to fathom how long we've been doing this, but like we always do about this time of year, we're celebrating with Pledge Month all month long in May. It's a fun stretch for everybody, and also a very important time of the year for the CME, because any potential gains we make next month are what keep us going for the rest of the year. And this year, we're definitely going to need some help from the CME listening audience. We got some fun stuff planned for Pledge Month. We're going to be rolling out some very special episodes over on the Patreon page. And one thing we know that we're planning is a bad takes accountability episode.
Yeah.
The idea is pretty simple. If there's one thing we've learned from 14 years of doing this, it's that listeners of this show remember the stuff we say way better than we do. So because of that, in the next week or two, we are asking listeners to write in to remind us of the absolute worst takes that we have had over the past 14 years. And then we will do a show where we have to face the music during our bad takes accountability show.
You know, I'll say one thing about this podcast, and I'll put it up against anybody else's MMA podcast on at least this topic. This show is accountable. You know what? We tell you, we keep track of our attempts at sports betting. We let you know how bad it's going. When you point out that we were way wrong or way off base on some shit, we will read out your question, your comments, your concerns. We will either agree that we were way wrong or fuck you, no, you're wrong. This show, you can reach out and let us know when we're wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could say that about the Joe Rogan Experience, Chad.
You could try to tell him he's wrong, I guess. You know, we won't even turn our legion of social media followers against you.
That's right.
If you try to point out when we're wrong, unlike some people we could mention.
Whatever the show is that Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo do with their shirts off, I don't know if you can do that with them. I don't know if you can reach out to them with their bad takes and have them be like, you know what, bro, you're right. We fucked that one up.
We put this offer out to our patrons earlier this week, and the bad takes are already starting to roll in, let me say. Although, as our guy Blue Cheese Dinner pointed out over there on the Patreon, the CME Bad Takes Accountability Week thread in the Discord is, quote, starting as a traditional Festivus celebration with the airing of grievances. More than bad takes, there are some grievances being aired over there. But I do want to pass this one along just to give a taste of what we're dealing with here. This one is from General Fish Sauce, who has actually serendipitous timing for him because he is going back and listening to the old episodes of the CME. So he's going to be able to unearth some real vintage takes, let's say.
Some would argue that it might be a little unfair to be like, hey, some shit we said in year 3 of this podcast doesn't look quite so intelligent in year 14, because shit A lot of shit has changed. People have come and gone, but okay.
Allegedly, according to General Fish Sauce, in episode 12,
12?
episode 12 of the show, we both made the prediction that by the year 2017, there would only have been one women's fight in the UFC, but that they were not regular occurrences.
Well, I don't recall saying that. Do you?
No, I don't. He could be lying to us. We might have never said this, but if we did, that was a bad take. That one was wrong.
We're way wrong on that one. Glad to be wrong on that one, frankly.
Yeah. So what we're asking is for long-time listeners, if you've been riding with the CME for a while, some of you who have been down since day one, we need you to dig into your memory banks and send us the worst of the worst, because as we just showed you right now, there's no way we will remember all of them. Mine your brains for our worst takes. Head over to co-mainevent.com and email them to us exactly as you would a regular listener mail. We are excited and frankly very scared to hear from you.
You know what's really going to be humbling is that somebody comes up with one from like 6 weeks ago.
I mean, the takes have been bad this whole time. So,
and everybody's going to be like, oh man, that was terrible. I will say this. There's got to be some people out there. This is the proper. They're listening. Maybe you listen regularly. Maybe you listen on and off. Maybe you just had to tune in for the Mike Malott discourse this week. But maybe you have considered becoming a patron and been like, nah, I got too many subscriptions, streaming services, all kinds of shit going on already. To which I would say, fair. Don't we all? But what I'm also saying to you now is for just $3 a month, $36 a year, Chad, you can get down, you can get with all the live chats, you can get on the Discord, you can really join the community, and it is, in fact, a genuine community, and you can help keep this podcast alive because, as Chad always likes to remind people, we are not backed by giant corporate entities. We don't have big MMA websites supporting us. We don't have a whole bunch of fancy sponsors. We have been trying to get that government funding for a long time. And frankly, from any government that you can name. Kazakhstan still hasn't gotten back to us, but I think that we got some irons in the fire over there. But we need your help to keep the lights on over here, to keep things moving, to keep this discourse flowing. So $36 for a whole year. Chad, I don't know about you. I guarantee you I will spend $36 this week on some stupid bullshit. It is 100% guaranteed. So why not spend it on our stupid bullshit? That is my plea to you.
I'll have spent $36 before this hour is up. Send us your bad takes. Our bad takes, I should say. We got some fun stuff planned also for May. I don't want to tip our hand, but if things go right, then we might be bringing back the old us.
Oh no!
Yeah, we might be promising to bring back the old CME. If
always a recipe for success when MMA fighters promise to bring back the old them.
Yeah,
I was actually gonna create a burner account just to submit as a bad take Chad's love of the Allbirds shoes. Now that word has broken that the Allbirds people are giving up making shoes and pivoting to AI.
Is that true?
Yes, there was all these headlines about it last week.
I got out of the Allbirds game several years ago.
Doesn't matter. I came around on the fact that the UFC was going to host regular women's MMA events some time ago. Doesn't stop people from throwing it into Bad Takes Accountability Week.
Look, we're already going to have enough non-MMA related bad takes. I can tell you that from the Discord thread. So hopefully we get some fight related stuff too.
I'm going to say this one time. I'm only going to say it one time, but I need people to hear me when I say it. Any of you pieces of shit come up in here with any bad take accountability attempts that involve eating ass, I swear to God, I'm gonna come to your house. I'm gonna slap you in the face, and then I'm gonna leave a copy of the Gina Carano Cloudfall DVD. What was the name of that movie?
Cloudfall sounds right to me.
I don't think Cloudfall was in it. Maybe it was called Cloudfall. I'm gonna leave a copy of the Gina Carano DVD in your mailbox. Don't do it. You think you're gonna be funny and clever. You're not. You're not gonna be the only person to have this idea. I'm saying this right now to get out in front of it, Chad.
It was, I want to say, the second comment. Yeah, it's the second comment
God
on
damn it.
on the thread in the Discord.
God.
All right. We went on too long. We're going to tell people about Pledge Month here in the next 10 days or so. But right now, send us our bad takes because that's what we need. We got to get into this here. Ben, Ariel Helwani went on a show this week, talked some about the soulless product that is starting to emerge in both WWE and the UFC during this TKO era. And frankly, the fact that it may be starting to turn off some hardcore fans in both sports. There are ads everywhere. You're starting to lose some of the features in both wrestling and MMA that fans have viewed, I guess, as essential parts of the product over the year. You turn on WrestleMania over the weekend, they got some jabroni sitting there next to Michael Cole because he paid for it, right? You got fans audibly chanting, "Fuck TKO." Wrestlers are complaining about lack of security, about the quality of the food backstage. Next year, they're taking WrestleMania to Saudi Arabia. And it seems like, there's some discontent. And in his quotes here, Ariel very much echoing what we talk about on this show a lot, very much echoing what I've been saying, especially about how I think there is some trouble brewing in the immediate or distant future for TKO. Worrying so much about the bottom line that maybe they're starting to lose some of the actual substance, some of the important parts of the product. I don't know. Man, I feel like there's trouble brewing, and I don't think anybody inside the company cares or is really paying attention to this stuff at all because they think, hey, we're making more money than ever. Things must be going great.
Yeah, that is the thing, is that it seems hard to breach this gap between fans, media people, some of the talent now being like, hey, we feel like we're kind of headed in a direction we don't like. We feel like some of this shit sucks now. And getting that message across to an executive class that is like, but we are making so much goddamn money right now that the last thing we're going to do is reverse course. If anything, we're going to just do more of whatever we've been doing to get all this money lately. And again, not to belabor the point about how you could essentially use what's going on in MMA, now WWE under TKO ownership, as a microcosm for the kind of enshittification of our current era of capitalism here in America. But this does seem to be part of maybe a larger cultural conversation in which you have the people who are making and keeping all the money being like, we keep figuring out ways to make and keep more of the money. We keep innovating in the wrong areas. We keep innovating in the like greed space and not the entertainment and sports space. That part seems to be kind of getting worse. And also, Darren Till was on Ariel's show today and talking about, his BKFC plans and everything, and was saying something about the UFC where he's like, Dana seems checked out to me lately. And he brought up the recent press conferences scrums after the press conferences where Dana White's being asked questions by the media members. They asked about the use of AI in their promo videos, asked about a few different topics. And his answer over and over again was, who gives a shit? And it felt like a mantra at a certain point from Dana White. Like, who gives a shit? I've built this thing that now is on autopilot and just kind of runs itself and spits out money. So you're saying you don't like some aspects of it. Who gives a shit? It's still spitting out all the money. It just doesn't seem like anybody's really thinking too hard about for how long, and is there a point at which all the buttons you've pressed to make it spit out money make it so that you have kind of doomed it for the future?
Yeah, well, they have definitely figured out every way to wring as much cash out of the dish rag as possible. They went out to Las Vegas for WrestleMania over the weekend, so essentially a home game for a lot of TKO people. it sounded like tickets did not necessarily fly off the shelves, but at the same time, they got so much money from Vegas itself in like tax breaks and site fees that they still, even before one person gets in the door, they're making a shitload of money, which obviously is a direct page out of the playbook of what the UFC has been doing lately. And so, they might as well set the ticket prices astronomically if it doesn't matter to you if they, people line up to buy them or not. But I just think we've been talking about this stuff in MMA for a while, and now WWE fans are starting to see, you can't even see the product through all the advertisements. And it seems like to the extent to which the creative wrestling people are even still in charge over there, they can clearly be overruled and are. What happened with Pat McAfee? Do we know? We inserted Pat McAfee into WrestleMania over the weekend, much to the chagrin of a lot of fans. And I got to be honest, I didn't track it closely enough to know what the next Sylvester Stallone went out there and did in the ring, if anything.
Well, him wearing a neck brace. He was wearing a neck brace. I saw some highlights from a bar in Spokane as it was being played late on Saturday night, and he was wearing a neck brace running around. Also saw Jelly Roll up in there, which that's the thing too, is where it's like you have all these kind of like celebrity involvement things, and it used to feel like maybe this is somewhat a difference in how wrestling and that kind of world is perceived now. It used to feel like when you got celebrities who would show up at a WrestleMania or involved in kind of a pro wrestling storyline, it had to be like 90% because they were wrestling fans, like they had to be kind of into this shit. And now it kind of seems like because the people who own the shit are the same people who own like one of the world's largest talent agencies, it works in reverse where they're like, who would we like to kind of put on this platform and give a bump to and try to make them seem like a celebrity and see if we can get them to catch on with this audience. Let's take that person and throw them over there. Like, at least that's the feel of a lot of it. The thing that, when I was watching these clips and I saw the big fella, Chad, I saw the big guy, Brock Lesnar, out there doing his stuff. And I was like, this is me saying this as somebody who does not watch a whole lot of wrestling. I'll catch like the clips, especially around like WrestleMania time. But I saw Brock Lesnar and I was like, I mean, obviously he's still a physical specimen. Yeah. He's like 47, 48 years old. But also he's starting to look like, oh man, that's what a middle-aged Brock Lesnar sort of looks like. And it made me have a brief crisis, a brief personal crisis. Cause I was like, it's happening even to Brock Lesnar. You're out there in the garage gym, you're hitting the weights, but you're also feeling like the muscles aren't quite popping the way they did when you were in your 20s and 30s. It's just, it's inevitable. Even Brock Lesnar, even with all his foot cream, even with all some of his natural genetic advantages, Chad, you can start to see him look a little bit more mortal.
Yeah.
Just in the physique. And I kind of went, oh shit, none of us will escape, Chad.
Well, he's been rocking that look for a while. Actually, he's been in, retreating into old man body with the weird ponytail. And he at some point he decided to say fuck it and start showing up wearing a cowboy hat. Just like things have been trending in that direction for Brock for a while. I just like that he is your barometer for youth.
Consider myself kind of a Brock Lesnar, obviously. So then when you see that, you're like, man, I feel you, Brock. Me and you both, brother. We're both right there. So yeah, makes sense. It also, it's kind of like when I was watching it and I was seeing, this clip of him losing this match, doing the JOB, putting the young fella over, and everybody, giving him his due daps. I mean, it kind of says something about your expectations for the guy where you're like, hey, he actually did it. He actually put somebody else over. And then he's taking off his gloves, leaving his shoes in the mat. And I had this moment of sort of like obvious reflection where I went, oh, okay, yeah. So like he had this pro wrestling run. And then he had his time in the UFC, and then he went back to pro wrestling, stayed there for a good long time, and now is retiring there. And when you can kind of step back and see the full picture, you realize, oh, over here in MMA, we were the side chick. We were the side piece for Brock Lesnar. We were a dalliance. We were a brief dalliance, a thing where he stepped away from his main job to real quick, though, come over and become UFC heavyweight champ, become one of the biggest draws in the history of the sport, and then be like, "Ow, I'm going back to my main gig over here, my actual career over here." And that kind of, I felt some kind of way I didn't expect to feel when I had that realization.
Yeah, it was a fairly short run for Brock Lesnar, about 4 years. If you take out his 2016 UFC 200 comeback fight against Mark Hunt, which was 5 years after his previous most recent fight against Alistair Overeem. But you know what? I'll say this: it was short. Maybe the candle burned twice as bright. Maybe for Brock, we were a side quest, and for us, he was one of the biggest draws we've ever seen, up there with Ronda and Connor and GSP, right? But it was influential for him, man. As short as the time that he spent in MMA was, and as kind of painfully it ended for him, it gave him a lot of even additional street cred, let's say, a lot of additional gravitas going back to wrestling, because even though he had previously been NCAA heavyweight champion and had already been a big star in WWE and was already regarded as like a huge athletic physical specimen, once he came over and whipped some ass in the UFC and went back to WWE, that made him even more believable, even more sellable, even more I have to think like respected and perhaps feared in the locker room. So, side quest, maybe few years here and there, win the championship, get your face all cut up, get diverticulitis, head back over to WWE. He still gained a lot in terms of like his personal resume by that short stop in MMA.
Yeah, I mean, he showed back up and he's wearing the MMA gloves, and now we're looking at him being like, yeah, no, that's a look that you earned. That's a legitimate look for you.
Pulling it off better than The Undertaker, I have to say.
Yeah.
It hurts my heart to say that, but like making it look a little bit more believable than like The Undertaker's Go-Go Plata or whatever it is.
You're trying to say the Undertaker didn't crush that Go-Go Plata? You're saying that wasn't a textbook Go-Go Plata?
It wasn't exactly Nick Diaz against Takanori Gomi. Let's say that.
I mean, I guess that for one thing, okay, first, let me ask a question that I'm going to tell you in advance that this is a dumb question. And I know it's a dumb question, but I want you to consider it as if maybe what this presupposes, maybe it's not the dumbest question that it's going to at first sound like to you. But
okay,
Chad, when it comes to Brock Lesnar, when it comes to the big fella, do you think the Minnesota Vikings ever feel like they fucked up a little bit? A little bit? Do you think they're ever just like, okay, look, man, maybe he wasn't going to be an immediate all-pro, but maybe we could have put him on the D-line, put him on some special teams, have him make the roster right away, have him be an NFL player, and it would have been like a big thing for us. And then maybe a year or two down the line, he would have been a legit starter. We would have sold a whole bunch of fucking Lesnar jerseys. A little bit.
I don't think they're looking in the rear view that way, man. I don't think the NFL in general as a sport and individual franchises are probably looking in the rear view like that. Not the least of which because most of those people are gone. Like there's probably very, very few people at the Minnesota Vikings who were around when Brock Lesnar was trying out, maybe ownership, but they did okay. The Vikings are still viable, right? It's not like they let Brock Lesnar go and all of a sudden they're Elite XC. They're still in the league as far as I know, still doing okay.
They're still in the league. It's not like they won a bunch of Super Bowls between now and then.
Are you telling me they would have if they put Brock on the roster? Maybe he was the missing piece.
Maybe maybe he turns out to be a great locker room guy. I know as soon as I say that, that is not true, that there is no possible way in which Brock Lesnar is a positive influence in your NFL locker room. I'm just saying, like, maybe it couldn't have been any worse.
Maybe there is a retired defensive line coach sitting in a bar somewhere right now, swirling 3 fingers of bourbon in his glass, telling the barmaid that if they just could have given Lesnar a few years, he could have been an all-pro. I don't know. I might believe that, but I don't think that the NFL or the Minnesota Vikings in general are taking the time to go back and think we should have kept Lesnar on the roster.
This motherfucker said barmaid.
I will say this, man. I remember Brock Lesnar, his UFC debut against Frank Mir at UFC 81. Even though he lost that fight, there was a moment in the fight where Mir was on the canvas, kind of like on his hands and knees, I think, and Brock basically like essentially walked around him to get a different position, and he did it so fast and was so agile for being, probably 285 pounds in the cage that night, whatever, that I saw him do that. And I thought in my mind, like that's an athletic fella right there. That's an athlete. And, he went on to do okay, at least for a very short time.
He did. He sure did.
All right. What are we doing now? I lost my notes.
You got stymied there.
Well, we just started doing this. That's the thing. I haven't been doing the show very long. Sometimes I get lost.
I believe this is the part where you're going to transition us into listener mail.
That's right. Yeah. No, like we always do about this time. Let's do a little bit of listener mail.
Listener mail.
First piece of listener mail this week comes to us from DZ, who writes, can we get the CME Consulting Service Ltd to do some pro bono work for UFC Winnipeg winner Mike Malott? Guy needs to have a name ready for the microphone. First of all,
LTD.
we do not work pro bono.
No,
I want to throw that out there.
Or another way of looking at it is, in point of fact, we have only worked pro bono.
You're telling me we're giving it away for free, live on the air?
Services LLC, DZ, Limited Liability Corporation. That's what the fake company that does the consulting services for fighters that they never asked for and apparently do not want. That's what heading it falls under. But it is an interesting question, especially because I think that the CME Consulting Services, when it comes time to us helping you stand out and helping you like become a thing, we have to take a lot of variables into account. For instance, we have to take Mike Malott's very Canadianness into account.
Okay.
You can't just be out here suggesting stuff for Mike Malott that you would suggest if, like he was some dude who came from Russia or LA or Brazil. There's a different thing, especially because it's like what you're talking about is a guy who the UFC certainly hopes can appeal to the Canadian audience, which they have ignored and taken for granted for many years. But they're hoping he could become kind of a thing over there. Now, I was talking about this last week because Chuck Mindenhall talked to him for a story, and he was like, as soon as I brought up any sort of GSP comparisons, you could tell Mike Malott, it's like, here we fucking go. Like he's heard it before, doesn't really want that, for understandable reasons. But you need to know that the Canadian fighters are going to have a little bit of a different vibe. So I don't know if it's going to be as easy as putting a raven on a guy's shoulder or having the guy hail from parts unknown or having him wear a pirate eye patch or something like, like you gotta do something a little bit different. I just don't know what that something is.
Well, I mean, the thing he did do was become one of the guys in the UFC to positively cash in on young guy versus old guy fights.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. This is one of the things when we were talking about this last week about because you were kind of like, aren't we kind of doing a lot of the young guy versus old guy fights? Mm-hmm. And then when you saw the result in this one, did you not kind of go like, all right, the thing that about the young guy, old guy fight is that when the young guy wins and looks good winning, it doesn't, it feels too like everything went according to plan, which is kind of boring.
Yeah.
You know, when the old guy wins, it's like, holy shit, father time, take a seat, not yet, you know, like raging against the dying of the light. When the young guy wins, it's just sort of like, well, everything went the way it was supposed to go. I get like there's something about it that is not as exciting, unless I guess you're a huge fan already of the young guy or you hate the old guy.
I should say by young guy versus old guy, I mean the guy who is perceived as having more left in the tank. His highest high is perhaps still in front of him. Mike Malott, 34 years old. So I don't want anybody to jump on the internet and be like, it's old guy versus slightly younger guy. You know what we're saying.
I mean, it's like 5-6 years difference, but really the big difference is old hotness. Gilbert Burns, former title contender, who the UFC clearly looks at him and they're like, he's on his way out. New hotness guy, 3-fight win streak. You know, we're very excited about what we could do with him, especially for the Canadian market. Like that's clearly what the UFC is thinking.
Yeah, 10-1-1. Dating back to 2014. His only loss in that time is to Neil Magny at UFC 297. He's now won 4 in a row, last 2 against Gilbert Burns and Kevin Holland. So perhaps, you know, they're right to be, I think, cautiously optimistic about the kind of guy perhaps Mike Malott could be, especially in the Canadian market. If you want him to be that guy, I don't know if I would be snatching the Canadian flag out of his hands.
Yeah, man.
You know?
Yeah. That, I mean, did you see he was on Ariel's show yesterday, I think, talking about that, and he was like, I'm just trying to understand what the fucking rules are with this thing. Because he said, I think when he fought in Montreal, he said that, you know, they told him you can't have it in the cage. And he was like, okay, so if I jump on top of the cage after I win and I hold it up, then it's okay. And they were like, yeah. And they showed a picture of him doing that. And then this time, that's exactly what he tried to do. Is he jumped up on cage and he's holding the and he pointed out, this is what jumped out to me too. He's like, they didn't just take it away. The guy snatched it. That was a snatch. That guy snatched that shit out of his hands. And then the guy said Mike Malott said the guy gave him like a dirty look afterwards, like, you bastard, how dare you? And he was just like, first of all, I just fought in a cage. Don't get tough guy out here trying to when you take away the flag. But also it's just like, come on, what are we even doing with it? We want this guy to be the Canadian guy. We bring him to main event a show here in a Canadian city that we don't go to very often anymore. He holds up the Canadian flag. That's supposed to be, everybody's hitting all the numbers right there, man. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to do there. And then you're going to take the flag away from him? What was the worst case scenario that happens as a result of him holding up the Canadian flag in Canada after a big win?
I'm just going to throw this out there, taking a page out of the old school WWE handbook for Mike Malott. The Mountie?
See,
comes out in a red wool coat, wide brimmed hat.
When you remember the Mountie gimmick in the WWE, the old Mountie gimmick, are you like, yeah, that was great, man. That was one of the highlights for me. I always got excited to see the Mountie. No! Fucking sucked.
Would you rather have that, or would you rather have proper Mike Malott? Because that's the man's nickname now.
Here's what I'll go with. Manager. Outspoken manager. Outspoken. Okay, we need a Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman sort of like partnership of opposites. We need there to be an outspoken, brash American manager who comes along and is just like, Mike, you're a great fighter, but your very Canadianness is stopping you from getting over. I've got a plan. I've got a plan for us, Mike. And their personalities, Chad, they just clash. Maybe they also have to share like a studio apartment. I don't know. I'm flexible on that part. They've got to be thrown together somehow, sort of initially against at least one of their wills. And yet somehow the partnership starts to gel. And it actually starts to work, but there's still some friction every now and then just to keep it interesting.
Next question this week comes to us from Dan Alexander, who writes, heartbreaking and heartwarming to see Gilbert Burns retire in the octagon. surrounded by his family, holding his young baby and holding back tears. I almost shed one myself. God damn it, Gilbert, why you do that? But this is MMA, so I hope he sticks to his decision. But no doubt clout chasing Covington is currently spell checking his tweet, ready to issue
he wouldn't bother to spell check it. He wouldn't bother.
Ready to issue a loser leaves town fight for the right to stay in Florida, or Dana will need a name to feed a young up-and-coming buzzsaw. I feel like they already did that. Anyways, firstly, your thoughts on the career of Gilbert Burns, and then please discourse future locations for Covington to move to. Love you both equally, but if you're both playing serious second fiddle to Sir Nigel Longstock, what the hell have you done with the glue that held the podcast together? # free Sir Nigel. Sir Nigel's too big time for us now.
Yeah.
Is the honest truth of it. He's got stuff going. Mm-hmm. We can't just call him up now and be like, hey man, come on the show.
No. And he's wanted in a lot of places. And I mean that in like there are warrants sense. So he can't just be showing his face anywhere. He'll be in the Who Scout before you know it. But, I always wonder, especially something like this, where, you got the family, you got the baby around, you knew what kind of a fight you were headed into. It's got to be in your head beforehand, like, hey, here we go. I was thinking about this recently when I was reading this book, and it talked about how Floyd Patterson, when he was heavyweight champ, and he lost the title when he fought Sonny Liston for the first time, got knocked out in the first round. And he left the arena that night in a fake beard that he had brought as a disguise for the event of if he lost and needed to get out of there without wanting to talk to anybody.
I'm going to stop you right there. When you get to the point pre-fight that you're packing the fake beard,
exactly,
might be time to walk away, bud.
Exactly. Because you brought that fake beard for a reason. Mm-hmm. That was a contingency plan. You thought about it in advance. You pictured a scenario in which you went out there, got beat, perhaps in a humiliating fashion, and wanted to hide. It's like if Ronda Rousey brought that pillow for one reason, and it was to hide her face walking out of there. Like, it's a troubling sign, I think. I will say, for the rematch, he made a point of telling people he did not pack the fake beard. He did not pack any of that. Still got knocked out in the first round. So
that's not a flex, though. Just want everybody to know I didn't pack the fake beard is not a flex.
Is burning the ships, giving himself no possibility except victory, which he did not achieve. But yeah, it also kind of occurred to me there with Gilbert. I saw Gilbert saying afterwards where the thing he thinks he wants to do now is go into fighter management. What do you think of that, Chad?
I don't know enough about Gilbert Burns, the man, to say one way or another, although I have to admit my initial response to Dan Alexander's question here about reflect on the career of Gilbert Burns is that I have a feeling Gilbert Burns is going to be a guy who gets lost in the shuffle of the history of MMA, right? He had a few years where he burned fairly bright, got himself into a title opportunity, didn't win, almost immediately.
So close. Had dropped Kamaru Usman, had him hurt.
Yeah. And then kind of that was the top of the roller coaster for him. And then, he's ended on a protracted losing streak here. I don't know how many people are going to think immediately of Gilbert Burns when we start talking about guys who we think of first or look back fondly on in the UFC. So does that speak poorly of his potential ability to be a manager? I don't know if it does. Like, maybe Gilbert Burns is getting that money, man. Maybe everyone else is going to be running around asking for that Gilbert Burns money. I don't know. But I mean, from a PR standpoint, I don't know that Gilbert Burns has done anything to like differentiate himself.
I thought about it because when I saw him talk about it, he was saying basically like, I think I could help in the sense that you see all these guys there, right now what the managers do is kind of just bring you to the UFC and drop you in there. And which is true. I mean, I think that's one of the many criticisms we have about the way most MMA management is working these days, where it's just sort of there's a few big brokers who are sort of just acting as a middleman to funnel people into the UFC as in a volume business and not really advocating for their clients. And he was like, I know enough about the fight game to know like what an athlete really needs to be successful on and off the mats, what kind of fights would be good matchups for him. And like all the stuff he was saying where I was like, this makes sense and would be legitimately good, helpful stuff if this sport worked that way, which is to say more like a real sport. But I just don't know that it does enough for, because all the stuff you're saying, I'm like, yeah, no, these are good points. They could use more help with that kind of stuff. I'm sure like just your experience in it gives you some of the knowledge that would help them with that stuff. And I also think that some of the powers that be wouldn't let you get too far off the ground with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't know about Gilbert Burns, the manager. Next question this week comes to us from Dexter Holland, lead singer of The Offspring. He writes, gents, Ronda's rant about Kayla, damn. I'm not a fan of the petulant crybaby, but that was kind of badass. And you have to ask, where's the lie? We talked about this on the Patreon Power Hour last week over on the Patreon page. Ronda's she's at least still got that. You know, we'll see what she's got when she gets in the cage with Gina Carano. But she's still got it when it comes to making us pay attention to her, making us look at whatever it is she's doing. And she was always good at it when she was in MMA. You and I talked about how, at least to us from the outside looking in, her WWE run was a little bit quiet. But here now she's been on the organic dairy farm with Travis Brown for a decade or whatever, returns and immediately starts cutting promos on the UFC and Hunter Campbell, and then says some shit about Kayla Harrison, who she is not fighting and has no chance to fight anytime in the near future. And yet many of the eyes in MMA still are glued to her. And it's because she's good at it, man. This was a good promo or whatever you want to call it on Kayla Harrison. And it ended with the line, shut up and eat your fucking groceries, which I thought was great. And so you can say what you want to say about Ronda Rousey. A lot of it she has earned and deserves, but she is still great at the public relations part of this.
Especially when she has a target that she can pick on and yell at. That's the thing. We talked about this and I still think that once she kind of clearly seized on Kayla as like, all right, that's who I'm going to cut a promo on, some part of Hunter Campbell went, whew, all right, good. The focus has moved off of me. I think in part, maybe the focus moved off of him because she realized that was going to be, there were going to be minimal returns on making a Ronda versus Hunter Campbell kind of thing, because not enough people know who Hunter Campbell is. And so it just wasn't going to work. And he just did not respond and say anything. And therefore it kind of died. Now she moves on to Kayla Harrison, who, you know, is going to say some stuff back. And then you got some stuff to work with. But she needs that. They could only get so far on Ronda and Gina are here to save the world. And they're going to be good friends about it until they get in the cage. Like that. There's a novelty factor there, but it's not going to sustain you all the way in your pre-fight buildup.
Next question this week comes to us from Pissed Off Lawyer, who writes, as you guys recently discussed, in a perfect world, the UFC should wait for Ulberg to heal up before booking another title fight at 205. But we know the UFC is going to do an interim title fight. If that's the case, hear me out. If the MMA gods are generous, Jan Blachowicz wins his upcoming rematch against Bogdan Guskov. Nailed it. I don't know. I feel like I got that pretty good.
Yeah.
It's Bogdan Guskov. Guskov. See, I fucked it up the second time. I said Gustav.
Never try to do it twice.
Looking in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
And then we get a rematch the world has been waiting for. Legendary Polish Power versus Big Onk. Discuss. Now, see, I loves me some Pissed Off Lawyer, frequent emailer of the podcast, but doesn't this illustrate to us how far we've fallen? A little bit at 205. Used to be Randy versus Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's Yanni Blackjacks versus Magomed Ankalaev.
Yeah, I mean, it goes up and down in waves, I guess. You know, you just lost Alex Pereira, who decided to go up a division and do some other shit. He had some high times up there as the light heavyweight champion. You was managing to sort of organically become a star at a time when the UFC just wasn't doing much of that. So it's not like it's always been a trash truck division, but it has at times been literally the trash truck division. And it's I guess it's kind of cruel in that you got this great moment from Carlos Ulberg, but one of the things that made it the great moment was the injury. And so it's the other side of that is that you turn around and you lose him for a while. But I also think that I still think the UFC should resist the urge to just think that the same solution applies to every problem, which is interim title, grab another belt, try to just work something up between these guys until this guy comes back. Why not try to focus on letting some anticipation build, especially now that you don't necessarily need the titles to sell pay-per-views because there ain't none. Let that anticipation for Ulberg coming back build, and let the other guys try to fight to clearly decide what we're going to do for when he does come back. Like, I know the UFC decided a long time ago, no, it doesn't cheapen any of these titles to have an endless number of interim belts, even if the interim at times is like 3 months. It doesn't stop them. They'll throw an interim title, but it does. I think that it does. And here's one situation where I think, like, let's not rush to it, at least until we can see like what, he has surgery. Maybe we can wait a couple months and see how things are looking. We do need to find out if Carlos Ulberg ever found that belt, though.
He's out there at WrestleMania over the weekend, I saw. Looked like he was wearing Roman Reigns' necklace.
Did anybody ask him, Carlos, did you find the belt?
Maybe he was searching for it.
That could be part of Carlos Ulberg's injury recovery gimmick, is that we keep seeing him he shows up judging a wet t-shirt contest in Daytona Beach, and he's like, I'm just looking for the belt. You guys looking high and low. It could be anywhere. No stone unturned.
Searching for the real killer. All right. I wanted to shout out Matthew, who said that he is a short-time listener and first-time emailer. He sent us a very long email to the podcast that I can't really read the whole thing, but I do want to thank him for writing in and invite him to continue doing that. I paraphrased a little bit here. He says, like many MMA fans, I'm pretty bummed that it's become hard to watch the UFC without feeling a bit complicit in the rise of authoritarianism in America, or worried I'm sliding into the manosphere. Boycotting would be simple, but that's just not happening. So here's a shorter think piece to give myself hope and to justify getting excited for Burns versus Malott this weekend. So obviously this came in last week. He said, Dana White, asleep at the wheel or not, is the face of the UFC and seems to have carte blanche from WME to make brand decisions around controversy and politics. Back when the UFC needed legitimacy, those choices felt more careful. Now, with a locked-in fan base and billions rolling in, Dana is free to live his truth. We're in a Dana White power trip era, and it sucks. But maybe one day things swing back and the UFC becomes more about fighting than quote-unquote free speech. Thoughts? Now, this is just, all the stuff that we talked about at the beginning of the show, how the product seems flat, lifeless, as Ariel Helwani said, soulless. Doesn't feel like there's anything happening. It doesn't feel like there's a lot to cheer for. All of that exists in this same reality where the UFC also feels empowered. I think as a company, I think not just Dana White, although he's certainly the face of it, feels empowered to make these other bizarre decisions, to like have a show at the White House for Big Donnie T's big boy birthday party and just alienate a vast swath of America and the world by doing this. And I can't explain it. It is just so bizarre. Aside from doing it because they feel like they can do anything, and because it's going to be, they're going to get a lot of eyeballs, certainly on CBS at the White House, I can't explain it. And every time I think about it, I have to remind myself that it's real. That this is where we are in
That
this
you're not
sport.
having some terrible dream.
It's just an insane place that we've arrived at in so many different ways.
I know that's the thought that I've had every once in a while, is kind of remembering what it was like when to be an MMA fan meant having some like weird advocacy element to it. You know, the way we used to talk about, we'd be on message boards being like, is this good for the sport? Is this bad for the sport? I don't know about this guy. Should he be doing that? Might be bad for the sport. Everybody was so concerned about these issues of perception just because it was like, we all thought, hey, this sport is awesome. And people are dismissing it out of hand just because they're like, it's a bunch of savages cage fighting. And we're like, no, I mean, maybe a little bit, but also it's more than that. And how, you know, people would get excited when it's like Rich Franklin's a champ. We can talk about how he was a math teacher, you know, there we go. Like not a guy, not like a skinhead dude covered in tattoos. Like it's good image for the sport. And to like a sort of a monkey's paw wish of getting to the mainstream and an event on the White House lawn, which would have been unfucking thinkable for like 5 different reasons, you know, 20 years ago. And to get here now and be like, oh, okay, maybe we wanted this, but not quite like this.
Yeah.
But again, it is sort of like the UFC has gotten to a point, especially like Dana White as the face of it and the kind of attitude that he projects at the top of it, where it's just so feels so insulated from having to do anything that you the fans might want. And if you don't like it, fuck you, don't watch. And that fuck you, don't watch has been a pretty consistent comeback of his for
He's been
many,
saying
many
that
years now.
Since he was saying that at a time when he probably really shouldn't have been saying it.
Yeah. He's
Like,
saying it
so
for at
that's
least
not
15 years. He's been saying fuck you, don't watch whenever there were complaints about it. And yet it feels different now. It feels like it's taken on a different thing, because before it was like people being like, why are you having this guy fight for the title and not this guy? And him being like, fuck you, don't watch. And you're like, that's not really an answer. Like, that's just like you being like petulant about it. But now when you get to this point where people are being like, why have you aligned yourself in this way, which is by its very nature alienating, when you didn't have to, like the UFC as a sports organization really didn't have to choose a political side. That was sort of a thing you ran towards, maybe because of your own like personal inclinations. But to get there and to have him turn around just being like, fuck you, don't watch. And it's just like, well, people are going to take you up on it, man. And yet they clearly feel like so comfortable that nothing is going to fuck with us at this point. And that just, I think for any business in any sort of customer facing zone, is this a bad place to be, man. You do actually need to be getting fans, keeping fans, getting people excited about this shit. You can do the fuck you don't watch thing for only so long before people just like, there is other shit to watch. There has never been a wider variety of other shit to watch.
That's going to do it for listener mail this week. If you have a question, comment, or concern that you want to air to the podcast, you know how to do it. Go to the website, co-mainevent.com, and click the link in the top right-hand corner that says email the podcast. I want to close with this one, though, from Jermaine Argentum, who writes, I'm sure y'all saw the announcement that RAF signed Khamzat Chimaev. How excited are you for this event, for his eventual debut against Uriah Faber? Seriously, though, what were they thinking putting Uriah versus Arman? We will talk about the RAF and some of the other stuff happening right after this. All right, Ben. The RAF is kind of interesting in that it seems to be another one of these sort of Johnny-come-lately splinter organizations that is marketing something slightly different than what the UFC is doing, but in large part marketing it off the back of fighters who have previously made a name for themselves in MMA or in the UFC. And in many cases, being able to do it with people who are still in the UFC. and are still plying their trade over there as MMA fighters. And I think in addition to that, benefits from the fact that this is what a lot of those guys wanted to do anyway in the first place, right? Before they had to become MMA fighters to pay the bills, they were wrestlers and wanted to be wrestlers. And you know how wrestlers are. Like, they will take any opportunity to wrestle. That's the thing they wanted to do. And so now that we believe the RAF is out here paying guys money to come over and wrestle, some people are more than happy to do it. And they're doing it with Khamzat Chimaev. They're doing it with Arman Tsarukyan. They're doing it with Uriah Faber. They were going to do it with Henry Cejudo before he had to drop out with an injury. You got Bo Nickel out here talking about wanting to go over there and wrestle. You got all these guys who have some notoriety from the UFC who are by trade wrestlers wanting to go do this. And so you're seeing RAF make headlines and have success. And it's yet another one where you look at it and you think, what's the future though? You know, like, how long do you keep this going and how long is it economically viable for you? Because I know about it. I know when Arman Tsarukyan gets in a feud with George Polis or whatever the take me down, get $1,000 guy from Instagram is named. I know about that. I know when they go flying off the side of the mat, I see that. But other than that, like, I'm not tuning in to watch RAF. I assume wrestlers are, but like, I don't know. I don't know what the future or long-term viability of this is, but it seems to be working for the moment.
I'll say this. Arman Tsarukyan is a goddamn gift for these people.
He's doing all the work over there, man.
Yeah, he is. I watched this thing mainly because, you know what, I talked to Uriah Faber before. I've written a few things about RAF and talked to different wrestlers about it and everything. But the thing that really makes sure that I watch some of these is when I have to write something that night, when I have to, or I'm manning the live blog or something, as I was for this one. And for one thing, it is weird that you have to go over there to Fox Nation to watch them. You have to sign up. I mean, I used one of the other Yahoo guys is sign up, but you have to sign up for like a subscription to Fox Nation. And as soon as you do, you're reminded that it's a little bit of an alternate reality over there. Because I logged in with this login info, got to the thing, and it's like, here's the RAF stream. Right next to it was a video feature entitled Nepo Babies of the Iranian Regime. I shit you not. A real thing they had offered, just because, you know, if you're just like, I want to get so fucking mad at the Iranian regime, like, oh, they have Nepo baby, like where on the list of things to get mad about the Iranian regime is Nepo baby? There's a lot of better shit. Anyway, you go over there, you watch the thing and everything. I mean, they put on a good live sports product, like the way they have it set up, the way they have, you know, the mat, the crowd, everything structured, and they really roll through these matches. Because it's like that. They'll get done with one, Chael Sonnen go interview the winner just for a couple minutes. Like a lot of the wrestlers, you know, they're a type, you know, their wrestler dudes are a type, and then they're on to the next one. And they really run through these things. So I appreciate, they respect your time. But Arman is the guy who keeps showing up and just making sure there is a moment from this that can get shared around on social media. And this one with Uriah Faber, there's no way you're going to convince me that that's not exactly what he knew he was doing there. Because he's kind of, you know, tossing Faber around. The size, youth, strength difference was too much for Uriah Faber. It was always going to be credit to Faber for getting in there and trying it anyway. It clearly wasn't his idea to go wrestle. He had another opponent lined up and they were like, how about you versus Arman? And he was like, are you sure, bro? And they said, yes, please. But when Arman runs him all the way off the mat, goes flying over the commentary table and landed on the concrete floor, there's no way Arman didn't do that on purpose, being like, I'm going to give him something. I'll make sure you get some kind of viral moment out of this. And he always manages to do it. He doesn't seem to care what it costs anybody in terms of physical damage, money, reputation. He will do anything. And so they really, I hope, appreciate what they got in Arman, because he's also like, he'll wrestle at damn near every one of these sons of bitches. And then they get out there and they announce that they've signed Khamzat Chimaev, and you're just sort of like, all right, you guys are finding a bridge from these events to the next one enough things to like rope in some of the rest of the combat sports audience. The barrier, I think, is that when you do watch these, you're reminded it's still wrestling matches. It's still a pretty technical art form that if you don't understand the nuances of, and especially don't understand the scoring criteria of, it could probably be pretty confusing and not that interesting to you. So it does seem like there's probably going to ultimately be a ceiling on how far you can go with that. And I don't know where the math works on how much they're paying these guys versus how much they're making back. But I gotta give him credit because like no one has ever done even this well at getting like an actual real wrestling promotion off the ground and making it seem to wrestlers like, hey, there is a way for you to go do wrestling somewhere else on like kind of a professional stage that just hasn't really existed in any real way before.
At least Foley and the Taker talked it over beforehand. You know what I mean? Like they knew someone was getting thrown off the cage. Taker didn't want to do it. I doubt. Arman Sarukian was like, hey, Uriah.
Yeah.
We're going over the edge, brother. We're going off the side.
Uriah Faber would have been like, bro, I got kids and I got work in the morning. I don't know, man. You know?
Yeah. Oh, he seemed to take it in a very Uriah Faber sort of way, though. So good on him. That's going to do it for the Co-Main Event podcast this week. We'll be over on the Patreon page all week. We got the live chat tomorrow. We got Doing the Damn Thing on Thursday and the Power Hour on Friday. Access to so much audio, video, message boards. We'd love to have you over there. We think it's worth it. We think you'll have fun. Go to patreon.com/co-main event. Sign up to join the team. We'd love it if you would. Stay tuned for Pledge Month. That's coming up here in a couple weeks. Send us your takes. Send us our bad takes, especially Ben's bad takes.
You don't need. They'll find those. You don't need to highlight.
Don't think they need help. I'll tell you this. It's a lot of microwave discourse.
Okay, good. I'm
in the Discord.
Bring that on. I'm ready for that.
You are, because it's not about you. You have society's preferred opinion on the microwave. I somehow slipped on a banana peel and landed ass backwards in the middle of the microwave discourse where I'm being portrayed as like a hipster or a Luddite or a crazy person who thinks that I'm getting radiation pumped into my brain just because don't have a microwave.
In fact, your objections are way dumber than that.
Find out during Pledge Month.
Honestly, you fucked up by admitting how when you stayed at an Airbnb that had a microwave and your kids loved it, and that showed some cracks in the wall, and now people are coming after you.
Well, now we might have to get one when we go home. All right, that's going to do it. Catch up with us on the Patreon all week, or we'll talk to you right here next week. As for right now, we are done. We are through. We are out.
I tell you something about. I was talking to Chael Sonnen earlier today for a different story I'm doing related to the wrestling and the RAF stuff, and I was just like, "You seem to genuinely still just really give a shit about wrestling." And he was like, "The only sports I watch really are MMA, wrestling, and gymnastics." And then he went on and kept talking, and I had to circle back, and I was like, okay, so you mentioned gymnastics in there. Were you fucking with me?
Oh, he's got to have a daughter, right?
Were you sliding in there? Nope. He just said at some point, he traced his interest in gymnastics back to Mary Lou Retton, Chad.
A young Chael with a crush on Mary Lou Retton? Is that what we're talking about?
I don't think he was saying a crush, just that he was inspired by her.
Oh,
you
sure.
remember when she was all beat up and everything, doing that shit, and he was just like, I think that when you look at the Olympics and you look at who are the best all-around athletes, it's not the decathletes, it's the gymnasts. It's whoever wins the all-around competition in gymnastics. And I was like, shit, I didn't expect us to be having this conversation today, but he kind of sold me.